What's growing on, gardeners? It is Thursday, March 3rd, and it is a gorgeous late winter day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. Today, I'm going to show you all how to winter prune an Asian persimmon tree. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. When it comes to pruning fruit trees, the two most common forms are the central leader form and the open center form. When we think central leader, we think of one single dominant center branch or center trunk, kind of like a pine tree. And then when you see an open center, you think more like a chalice form that you often see things like peach trees and other highly disease susceptible trees prune to. When it comes to growing an Asian persimmon, the best form that you should grow is called a modified central leader form, where it is kind of like a hybrid between the two, but closer to a central leader. And that is what you see that this tree has come pre-pruned to from the nursery that I purchased it from. If you purchase a persimmon tree, it will likely come pre-pruned, as it will be something like close to a year old. When you get a seedling tree or a fresh graft, it will be one single individual little thin trunk. And then right at about 24 inches, they will head that tree, they will decapitate it, and they will do that to encourage low branching down here. And you can see the heading cut right here, which was made at about the 24-inch mark to encourage that low branching, so your tree will not grow too tall. And what you see right here is the remnants of that modified central leader form that we need to clean up. When it comes to pruning persimmon trees, there are two different types of pruning that you will do as a gardener: winter pruning and summer pruning. This video is going to be specifically about winter pruning, which you do while the tree is still dormant and before it buds out for the spring. Winter pruning is when you will do things like remove any dead or diseased branches, as well as shape the tree overall. And because you are going to be removing the most amount of material from the tree, that is why you want to do it before it buds out and while it is still in dormancy, because it is less stressful for the tree. You want to do your winter pruning in late winter or early spring before the buds start to open. And I probably pushed it a little bit far. I should have done this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago because I'm starting to get bud swell now. You definitely don't want to do it any later than that. Now, as I mentioned, you will be trying to accomplish the overall form of the tree with your winter pruning. So the younger the tree is, the more you will be winter pruning, because that is when you will get the overall shape and balance of your tree. As the tree grows and becomes larger, you will basically already have your established form, and you'll just be cutting it back so you can reach the fruit every single winter. So winter pruning you do actually less as the tree becomes more mature. This tree right here is a Giombo persimmon that is going on its second season, and this is when we are going to establish its overall form the most. So this is going to be a fairly substantial pruning as the tree is still fairly young. Summer pruning, on the other hand, is something you will do during summertime, and you will be trying to accomplish something very different with summer pruning. The point of summer pruning is to remove water sprouts, as well as remove any branches that are shading the fruit, because when you shade the fruit, you generally get inferior quality fruit. So that's basically what you're doing with summer pruning. You'll also be thinning out the fruit to get larger fruits as well if you wish to do that, and also to try and prevent an alternate bearing pattern. With summer pruning, you do little while the tree is young, but as the tree gets larger and more mature, you generally have more summer pruning to do. As I mentioned, this tree is going on its second full season in ground, so it's going to get its most substantial pruning to date. This is the time in the tree's life when you want to try and develop the form that you want. Left unpruned, this tree will grow to be about 15 to 20 feet tall, which is way too tall for me to reach the fruit. I'd have to get an extension ladder, and that can be fairly dangerous. If you want the largest fruit tree possible with the highest yields possible and you have the space, you can do that if you don't mind getting a ladder to harvest the fruit. But if you want lower hanging fruit, you are going to want to prune it back. My goal is for the core structure of the tree to be somewhere between eye level and chest level. That is where I want most most of the branching to be. That way I can maintain this tree to be about 10 feet tall. If I do that, I will be able to reach the overwhelming majority of fruit, and then I will be able to basically just grab the branches and pull them down for anything above that I want to harvest. So about that 10-foot mark is about as much as I want this tree to grow in terms of height. To prune your tree, you're going to want two different things. You're going to want a pair of pruning shears, and you will use this on growth that is 1/2 inch in diameter or less. And then you want something like a Japanese saw or some other kind of fine pruning saw for any kind of material that is larger than that in diameter, because these will crush the wood. You want really clean cuts. If you need pruning shears or you need a Japanese saw, which I highly recommend, I have these linked in my Amazon storefront if you're interested. And of course, always remember to clean your pruning tools beforehand. When you begin pruning of your fruit tree, the first thing you want to do is remove any dead or diseased growth. This tree is very healthy and it doesn't have any dead or diseased growth on it right now, so thankfully I can skip this step. However, it's typical to have a little bit of dieback or die-off on any given year, so remove those pieces of wood first. The next thing you will want to do is you will want to remove any kind of growth that is growing into the tree. This is a very important concept to understand. Everything should be growing outwards. There shouldn't be any material growing into the tree. So for example, there is a piece of wood right here that is growing that way through the center of the tree. That is something that we are going to want to remove. Here you can see a great example of wood that is growing into the center of the tree. This leader is out here, so it's okay to have wood that is growing out, but they also have branches that are hanging out behind here. So a few of them actually snapped right off. We're going to remove those branches because they're growing into the center of the tree. Same thing here. We have this leader that's on the back of the tree, but this branch right here is coming out towards the front. So we're going to cut that off and just make sure that we remove all growth like that is growing in the wrong direction. We're also going to remove a lot of this wispy and unsightly growth because it really doesn't serve any purpose and it doesn't give us any value at all. Now we've removed a lot of the either dead, wispy material or the material that is growing into the wrong direction and into the center of the tree. You can see all of those prune marks, so the tree already is looking a lot nicer. Now remember, pruning is an art form. There is not necessarily a right way or a wrong way to do it, so please don't be afraid to prune your fruit trees. Even if you make a mistake, they will grow back and you will be able to correct them on subsequent years. And this is where the real art form of pruning comes in. Those initial cuts I made, they're really simple because it's pretty obvious that you need to cut off dead and diseased growth, as well as little wispy or ugly suckers and things growing and crossing through the center of the trees. But this is when you have to actually decide, what do I want my tree to look like? Now remember, we're going for a modified central leader form here, which is sort of like a canopy. And here I have basically two branches coming off this one main stem that are going to wind up competing with each other. And they look great right now, but that's because they're small. Eventually they're going to get a lot thicker and they're going to be basically growing into each other. So I need to pick and choose which one of these two I actually want to keep. And the one I'm going to keep is this one on the outside because, again, I want the tree to grow out. I don't want the tree to grow into the center. So what I will actually be doing is I will be removing this branch. And I know this will be difficult for many of you to do, but you just have to go ahead and do it and trust your gut and go for the form that you want. Now we have another one of those difficult artistic judgment calls to make. And once again, we have this right here is appearing to almost be like a central leader of the tree, but it's growing into the tree itself, and it clearly is the dominant leader, and if I let this continue to grow, it will become the dominant leader. However, I actually want this branch behind it that is growing out and away from the tree to become the dominant leader on this side. So I actually have to remove the strong dominant one in the center. And again, this is one of those challenging cuts to make because this looks like the nicest, healthiest piece of wood on the tree, but it's something we have to do in the beginning to get the desired form that we wish. Now, one thing you'll notice is that I make all of my cuts on an angle, and I do that on purpose because I don't want any water to collect on a flat, parallel to the ground cut. I want all the water to drip off so it heals over and it doesn't get some kind of fungal disease. And once you start removing material, it becomes more obvious the cuts you have to make. Now it clearly shows this branch is growing into the center of the tree, so we're gonna have to remove that guy. Now, as I continue to look over the tree, I notice this little nub right here is no longer of any value, so we are going to cut that off. And now is when we are going to make the cuts that are most important to develop the overall frame of the tree. Over here you can see buds on the trees. These are nodes, and if I allow the buds to branch out, they will branch out in the direction that they are facing. Now, what you want to do to encourage a certain bud to break out is to cut about an inch above it, and then where you make that heading cut, it will be the highest up bud that will collect the growth hormone, and that will grow into the new branch, generally speaking. Now remember, I want to cut this tree at eye level, which to me is right about here. But the problem is there is a bud behind here that is coming out this way. I do not want the tree to grow in that direction. Here I have a bud up here where if I cut just above it, it will grow out in that direction. And then I have another bud right here that if I cut it above right here, it will grow out in this direction. So I like the way that this bud is facing. I want the new branch to go out this way, so I'm actually going to cut right above that. Now I have established that roughly eye length frame of the tree, and this is going to wind up being the thickest part that all the fruiting wood will grow out off of from here on out. So I need to even this tree out because I can't have one side much lower than the other. Otherwise, you'll get an imbalanced tree. As per apical dominance, a tree will put most of its growth hormone at the highest point of the tree. So anytime you do a pruning, you want to make sure that everything is as even as possible so you don't get a tree that is dominant on one side. So looking this tree over, I'm going to cut this one right here. And I'm going to want to cut these down to size a little bit. This bud is moving in this direction, so I'm going to cut right here. And then I also want this bud right here that is growing out in this direction to be the dominant bud, so I'm going to cut right here. Now, I just did a 360-degree walk around of the entire tree, and I assessed it, and I don't like its balance. It's weighted far more on this side, so I need to do a little bit more pruning here. And remember, pruning is an iterative process. You make a few cuts, you step back, you look at the big picture, you see how it's balanced, and then you come back and you make more cuts because you may have to change your original plan. And after looking at this tree, I want to remove this branch right here because it is just redundant to this branch and I don't want it to grow into the center of the tree. It's kind of competing. And I also decided this branch right here, I don't like the direction it's facing, so I'm going to cut this whole nub down to make it in balance with this one. And now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to even out these two branches right here to make them even with this branch, because these three branches here are going to basically make up the core of my tree. And I want to make sure that I choose buds that come out in this direction. So I'm going to take this one to here. I take that back, I'm going to take it to here. And then I'm going to take this one to here. And now we're going to assess our tree, and I think I have here a nice, fairly well balanced core of my Giombo persimmon tree. And this right here is going to be the core form of my Asian persimmon tree. Again, it's going on its second full year in the ground. So this season is going to be when it really puts on a tremendous amount of growth. So I really needed to pay attention to detail to really get that core form now. This is more than likely going to be the most significant pruning it ever gets, because again, this is the core of the tree. This is its new skeleton system. So every year it is going to grow back from this core form right here, and then come winter again, I'm mainly going to cut it back to this form. It will likely creep and get slightly taller over time, but this overall is going to be the base of the tree, and we're simply going to prune it back in the winter every single year. Now, as this tree becomes older and begins fruiting, I will be able to give you a tutorial on summer pruning. I'm not sure if this will be the year that it fruits. The way persimmons fruit is off of the previous year's wood, they will grow new wood, and then off of that new season's wood, they will send fruiting branches or spurs off of that. So time will tell if this is going to be the fruiting season or if I'm going to have to wait one more year. But regardless, I'm really happy with the form that we achieved in this video. Don't be afraid to prune your trees. Remember, the younger they are, the more resilient they are, so it's important that you get that form down pat so you have a nice skeletal structure of your tree where it's easy to harvest moving forward. And that right there is how you winter prune an Asian persimmon tree. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about the pruners that I used in this video, or any of the equipment that I use in my garden in general, I have them all linked in my Amazon storefront down in the video description, and check out my spread shop there for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. All right, Dale. Ready? Ha! He's going to be so upset I'm teasing him. He's so mad. Run! Run, Dale, go! Go, Dale, go! Where'd he go? There he is. There he goes. There he goes. Get him, get him, get him. There he goes, there he goes, there he goes. There he goes. Oh, he has so much energy.